Welcome to the Business Building Blocks podcast, where we talk about the struggles and celebrations that leaders and entrepreneurs experience on their journey to success. I'm your host, Kristina, and I'm passionate about helping you achieve massive amounts of success at work and at home. We'll talk about all things people and organizational wellness, share relatable stories, and feature insightful guests because quality people and processes are at the heart of every success story. Ready to learn, grow, and have fun? Let's dive in. Hello and welcome to the Business Building Blocks podcast. I'm your host, Kristina Schmitt. I have more and more heard this saying, and I feel like I've heard it for a long time, but I hear Patrick Lencioni and I've heard read John Maxwell say it several times, but the best leader is a self-aware leader. So let's think about this a little bit. A lot of times we think that our best leader is like this gregarious, like big personality, somebody who, maybe sometimes life of the party, sometimes just a super kind person, sometimes, somebody who's like, I know what I want and we're going to get there and we're going to all drive together, very motivating sort of person. But ultimately, it's not any one of those characteristics that makes them very successful, but it's actually how aware they are of themselves and who they are, where they strive, where they excel, where they struggle. So the more aware you are, the better your results are going to be. So let that sink in for a minute. Okay, so let's really dig into what does it mean to be self-aware, so that you understand what it is I'm trying to get at first. So to be self-aware, it's very much understanding yourself. And it's not just understanding like maybe some characteristics around you, but it's understanding as many aspects as you can. So growing up, we used to love the Saturday morning cartoons, and there was this commercial that would come on, and I don't exactly remember the topics, but like it would always end with, the more you know. So excuse my singing, but this is the same thing, right? The more you know. So the more you know about yourself, the better off you're going to be. So let's dig into what that means. The more you know about really anything and everything about you. So we can talk about what drives you. What are your motivations? What drains you? So the opposite of that. What are you really good at? And what do you struggle with? What are your life priorities? Or as some might say, your priority in life. So what's that number one thing? Or another way to put it would be, what are your values? What sort of values do you must have versus are kind of okay versus this is absolutely something I would never ever do. So like that kind of self-awareness. It could be like bucket list sort of stuff. Like, where do I want to accomplish? What do I want to improve? Like what do I want to be known for? But even digging in deeper than that, it's what stresses me out and why. What in my history has gotten me here today? Like, why do I get impacted by all of this? So there are so many aspects of it, and it's going to come, like, learning about yourself is not something you're just going to go spend a weekend and like know anything and everything about yourself. There are so many layers to it. So it's going to happen over the course of a lifetime. And that's life experience, right? Understanding, hey, I have these experiences and they have shaped me to be this way. And I've actually learned from this, so I don't do this anymore. So like that's where experience comes in, but it's so much deeper than that, because it's also understanding the why and how you can even affect it or impact it. So understanding your natural tendencies and when to lean into those natural tendencies and when to say, okay, I have to act in that unnatural tendency to get the best impact here. So what this really comes down to is almost another way of saying emotional intelligence. But I feel like when we use words like that, there's such a disparity in how people understand what that actually means that it's not as impactful as just describing it and saying it. So if you know some about emotional intelligence, a very simple way of understanding emotional intelligence is understanding the 4 stages of it. So your first stage is a self-understanding. So again, it's this knowing about yourself, right? And the reason you want to understand yourself, and the more you can understand yourself, that will lead to the second level of it, which is that self-control. So when we understand that a certain situation might stress us out beyond our abilities, then we can prepare ourselves to have better self-control when we go into that situation, or when we understand that we're really, really good here, but the situation actually calls for us to take a step back and let somebody else show up. Then that self-awareness is there. And maybe the self-awareness as to why it might be hard for us to step back could be there as well, right? Like sometimes we're in situations where we feel actually that we have to show off a little bit. We have to show our prowess, to show our leadership, and understanding that as much as we think we need to do that, we're actually going to show our leadership better by taking a step back and showing a little humility and letting someone else shine. Like that self-awareness level is huge. So it's that ability to understand where we are naturally and then how we can implement that self-control. And then what that leads to is then understanding others. And when we can understand others, we can start to see where they might need us to behave a little bit differently today. Not in a way that's not true to ourselves, but just not just fall right into the natural parts of us. Because I like to talk about this a little bit, but when we all have natural ways of behaving. And yes, in theory, when we can behave in our natural way, we're ourselves fully. But a lot of these natural ways aren't always truthful or aren't always our best selves. So a lot of our natural behaviors have come from being wounded or from problems, and they're actually reactions from something that is not good and something that is bad and maybe not our best selves. So I've used this a lot, but my natural reaction to feedback is like, they don't like me, they're insulting me, right? I've learned and been able to kind of take a step back from it that, okay, no, they're giving me feedback because I want to get better at this and they need to give me the feedback, but I still can feel the natural one. And that natural one is not correct and it's not good and it's not helpful. So I have to learn to behave differently outside of my natural one. And this is what I'm talking about, is that sometimes people need different parts of us. They need a different aspect of us. And so the better we understand ourselves, the better we can consciously choose where we need to be and what behaviors need to come out of us while still being truthful. So what behaviors need to come out of us to get the best from ourselves and the best results, the best from our team, the best from our businesses, and the best from our personal relationships, really. So what that enables us to do, build strong relationships. And everything is run on relationships. So the good Lord designed us to work in relationship with each other. Businesses all run on relationships. Teams run because of strong relationships. Great leader-employee relationships are what drive great teams. So everything is about building strong relationships. So when we understand ourselves, we can have these great relationships, which create great teams, which create like a healthy competitive environment, healthy conflict that like susses out the best result versus just says yes because it's easier, just says yes because we don't want to step on somebody's toes who can't handle it, or we can't handle the conflict that might come from somebody disagreeing with us, so therefore we keep quiet and we don't say our idea that would actually build upon somebody else's and make an excellent idea. So this self-awareness piece is that first step to creating this greatness piece that we want, this great team, great organization, and great results that we all are in business to do. And that is why we start with us. So when you're leading, you start with you start with yourself, you learn about you. And that's why this is so important. If you can't tell, I'm very passionate about this starting with you. And it stems because I realized this maybe later than I should have, because when I was a leader, I was running plants and, leading the way that I was taught to lead, which was to act like all the other leaders. And I struggled with different things than they struggled with. And the fact that I could see that I was struggling with different things. I could see that I wasn't motivated by the things that they were motivated by. And instead of saying, yeah, because I'm me, I could do that about some things, but there were definitely things where I said, what's wrong with me? Why can't I do that? I must not be good because I can't do it that way. And that's not true. If you can understand yourself, you can say, yeah, I struggle here. yeah, I'm not motivated that way, but I'm motivated this way. And that's just me. Or I like to do this portion and I'm going to lean into this portion because I'm good at this portion and I can use it to help my team succeed still. So rather than like forcing this thing that I'm not strong at, like I was trying to force acting like everybody else. And in doing that, felt inferior and then wasn't any good at doing the thing, if you can believe it, and didn't lean into the areas where I could have really shown, whatever the word is. I could have really made it work. I could have really done well with it because if I'd have leaned in with me versus with pretend me and having a deeper understanding of me, my motivations, my idea of success, my abilities and my struggles, and saying, yep, that's what it is. And how do I do this job that way? And rather than saying, oh, I suck at this, I better keep doing it so I can get better at it. That's not going to get you there. And so the importance of that being able to say, this is me and this is how I lead. And this is how I lead well. And this is where I need help. And this is where I need to help others. That is so key to not only making a strong workplace environment for you and your team, but also setting a great example for them as to how all areas of life are needed, but then also creating a life where you feel successful, where you aren't burnt out because you're actually feeling rewarded by the work that you do because you're doing the things you do best, rather than judging yourself and getting stuck in this thing, trying to do the things that you just weren't wired to do. So that's the why. So now let's talk about the how, because that's where the rubber meets the road. If we don't know how to do these things, then might as well not listen today, right? Unless you just are so entertained by my chatting and my going off on a tangent about things. So how do we do this? How do we learn more about yourselves? So if I were talking to anybody and they were to pose this question for me or to me, the very first thing I would say is just take a working genius assessment. And yeah, I know I'm a little biased, but oh my goodness, it's one of the quickest ways to just get an understanding of yourself and how you function in your workplace, why you enjoy certain things, why you don't enjoy certain things, why you excel at certain things, and why you might struggle to excel or have to work extra hard and put yourself through a lot of misery to succeed at other things, and how you even want to interact with others. So it gives you such a great insight into all of those areas and a great insight into where you should lean in and where you should ask for help. So great first place to start. If you've taken that already and you have a little bit more want for a little bit more depth in some of these other areas with kind of a quick objective view of it, then take some other assessments. I mentioned I had Laura Rowland on my podcast a while back. She does this motivation code, which is great. The assessment is a little different. You're telling stories about yourself and kind of like why you felt certain ways about the stories. So very kind of different sort of assessment, but very impactful results when you really start to understand them. So that's a great one. Myers-Briggs is a pretty good one. I've liked it just kind of as okay, yeah, that makes sense. StrengthsFinder is another good one. I had Heidi Kennedy, who also does that as well on my show a while back. So if you want some more information on that, you can find her episode as well. So just some great insights into yourself. So don't take all of them because you're going to get a little lost. You can take all of them eventually, but don't take all of them in one fell swoop because it's going to be too much too fast. Start with one, understand it, use it, see it, apply it, then maybe dig a little deeper, have another one. But those are some great places to start, but they're not everything. Like they are a great insight. They can be referred to a lot to help tie in a little bit more, tie in a better understanding to what you're doing, but they're a great place to start. But again, I'll say this like 100,000 times over, but you could line up every single personality test side by side and still not have a full picture of yourself. So it's not everything. Okay. So don't hang your whole hat on it, but great place to get some instant insight. The next parts are a little harder. Okay. They take a little more time and maybe a little bit sitting still, thinking, reflecting, that sort of thing. But start to reflect on your day. Each day, how did it go? What went well today? Where did I show up the way I wanted to? Where didn't I show up the way I wanted to? What was happening? How was I feeling? You will be amazed at how much you can learn from a self-reflection exercise. If your examine is a Catholic view of it, so you can kind of look at, okay, where was I behaving the way I wanted to behave today, not behaving, but just some simple questions. How did today go? Where was I successful? Where did I fail? What was going on? Like very simple questions. I am a huge fan of journaling something like this so that you actually write it down and get a complete thought through. My mind likes to jump around in a few different places. So journaling helps me stay focused to really reflect and think. So I highly recommend journaling through it. If you're very good at like contemplative meditation, prayer, that sort of thing, you might be good at doing it without writing it. But I would recommend writing it down because that's going to be a huge like mirror back to you and a big like wow when you look back months and years later and say, oh, wow, I was still talking about that 2 years ago. Why am I still talking about that now? So it can be a good mirror for that. So once you've done that for a little bit, determining some core values for you. I talk about this a lot with regard to business, understanding your business's core values, but really understanding your own personal core values because we all will have some, right? And they're going to be, a couple of things that are just really, really high, like non-negotiables on your list. It's good to just have those written down, especially if you have a tendency to be a bit gray in certain areas of your life. Really clue in on what are some very core values. And you can even start to identify a little bit of what are some aspirational values? Where do I want to have that be very black and white, but I'm not quite there yet. So identifying that so you can kind of really, really start to see what am I working on? Where am I trying to get to in life? And am I there? Am I meeting this standard that I want to set, or am I not meeting this standard that I want to set? And you can also look into what has maybe become an accidental value. So if you find yourself spending an abundance of time scrolling at night, really that's become a value. And maybe it's an accidental one. Like maybe you don't want to be scrolling social media first thing in the morning or at the last thing of the day. And that's an accidental value that you want to go, nope, don't want that one. So clarifying again the core values and these key things that you want to be and you want to behave like, that's going to help you see that better. And then, of course, any learning about yourself, reading self-help books, business books, just various different books, all of that kind of stuff. And of course, coaching and counseling, they're all going to help you just see things, mirror back to you things where you're struggling, things that patterns you might not have otherwise identified, and ways to overcome these things that we fall into. So all great places to start. So I would do them in the order that I rolled it out. You can always be learning and reading and all of that at all times. But if you're looking for something to kind of get a big leap, do a working genius or some kind of assessment, start a habit of self-reflection, then start to identify your core values, your accidental values, and your aspirational values, and then continue that constant kind of iterative lifelong learning, whether it is coaching, whether it is therapy, some combination of both, book reading, course taking, all of that stuff is going to help you become more and more self-aware because you're interacting, you're seeing, you're learning something new, and you're reflecting it. Okay, so you put it all together. It's a great little package to get a little bit more self-aware every single day. So ultimately, this is about clarity. The more clear you are on who you are, the better you can transmit your ideas, the better you can relate that to your team, the better you can relate that and build these relationships within your business and organization and communicate your ideas and motivate your team. So it is very well worth getting to know yourself a little bit better. So if you know somebody who needs to hear this, who needs to hear a little bit about how self-awareness is going to help them in business, then share this episode with them because I want people to learn it. I want people to know because I've struggled through it in my life and my work, and I want to help others not struggle with it or get out of the struggle that they're in so that they can do better, do more, and live the life they're meant to live. So like this episode, comment it, comment on it on the YouTube, share with a friend, leave a review, and subscribe to the channel wherever you might be listening to this podcast or watching this podcast. And I will see you on the next episode of the Business Building Blocks podcast. Thanks for tuning in to the Business Building Blocks podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss what's next. If you found value in our conversation, please leave a quick review, like, or share. It helps us reach more amazing listeners like you. For more resources and insights, visit KristinaSchmitt.ca, where you can find tools and support to empower your leadership journey. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you in the next episode.